Welcome to Leaders in Healthcare, the podcast exploring the intersection of healthcare, innovation, and technology. Today's guest is Dr. Joel Moktar, surgeon, entrepreneur, and founder of QuickChart, an AI-powered medical scribe platform designed to transform how clinical documentation happens at the point of care. As administrative demands continue to grow in modern medicine, tools like QuickChart are helping clinicians reduce charting burden by automatically generating clinical notes, allowing providers to focus more on patients instead of paperwork. In this episode, Dr. Moktar shares the story behind QuickChart, the challenges physicians face with inefficiency, and how AI-driven documentation is reshaping clinical workflows, provider well-being, and patient care. From frontline clinical insight to health tech innovation, this conversation explores why AI scribes may become one of the most important technologies in modern healthcare.
Rather than a SOAP note, for example. And so we wanted to be able to generate very long, detailed notes. We want to be able to do things like IMEs, cardiology assessments, things that required, a long amount of time, like 60 minutes or more sometimes.
Dr. Moktar, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about QuickChart.
My pleasure. Yeah. QuickChart's a software company that I started with my roommate from U of T. I'm an orthopedic surgeon up in Sudbury, and he's a cardiologist in London. And him and I were in med school together 15 years ago now. And 2 years ago, roughly, we were chatting, and he said, "Hey, have you tried some of the scribes?" And this was the early days of AI and scribe technology. And I had been a big fan of AI already. I'd been doing some AI-generated artwork and been playing around with ChatGPT. And we tried some of the scribes, and they were okay. And he said, "I think we can build something better." And he's a software developer. He was one of the original guys that started Oscar EMR back in McMaster in the early 2000s. Super smart guy and good friend of mine. So I have a background in engineering as well and some business experience. And we just, put our heads together and said, let's build something for specialists and something that's a little different than everything else that's out there and something that solves the problems that we're seeing in our day-to-day lives.
And so paint us a bit more of a picture on the context at the time. Like when you're doing your orthopedic notes and like your transcriptions, what was the workflow like back then before you guys started on this?
Yeah, so things have changed quickly. I've only been in practice for 5 years, but when I started, I was hand typing all my notes. And then about 6 months to a year in, I got Dragon. And I thought this was an incredible technology, right? You could watch the letters across the screen. You'd have to do a lot of correcting and editing, and there was no formatting to your note, and it would get things, wrong. But it was pretty cool, and I felt like that was a big time saver, and that's what I effectively did for the last 3 years or so. When we had seen what you can do with some of these open source voice-to-text models, just in terms of transcription alone, without actually turning the transcript into a note, it was pretty incredible. And the first time I tried it, it was like magic. I'm like, oh my God, like I don't have to dictate after every encounter. It's tech moves quickly, but still there's days where, I use the software as a scribe, and there's other things we're doing now, but just the scribe component alone captures the details so well. When I tell people, lay people outside healthcare, what actually happens, they find it hard to believe, right? I have a natural conversation with a patient. We talk about their problems, about the weather, then they leave the room, and then I have to repeat myself into a microphone using medical terminology. That has now been kind of changed and now is really happening at the same time. So it's.
And was the idea, it was more like the clinical encounters as opposed to your operating notes and your procedure consults?
Yeah. It's actually
Gotcha.
both. So the main issue is the clinical encounters, right? You've got a busy clinic. Sometimes our fracture clinics, we're seeing 100 patients a day, and trying to document or dictate as you go, just not possible. If you do at the end of the clinic, you're going to forget half the details on the patients. So that's the big time saver. But even for operative notes, procedure notes, discharge summaries, this tool is very useful, and it allows you just to synthesize audio, but also additional information into a cohesive note.
And what did the other tools look like at the time? Because you said that was a big part of the impetus to get going on building your own. What was missing? What did the deficit look like there that you were wanting more from it?
So it was really being able to customize templates in terms of having that sort of consultation feel rather than a SOAP note, for example. And so we wanted to be able to generate very long, detailed notes. We want to be able to do things like IMEs, cardiology assessments, things that required, a long amount of time, like 60 minutes or more sometimes of audio transcription, and a multi-page report. And that was just the beginning. And then we realized that audio is just one part of, a medical report, right? You're synthesizing information from PDFs that come in, from images. Patients might bring in their medication lists. So now we've added all those features so that you can capture the audio, but you can also take pictures of medication lists. You can drop in referral PDFs, and the data is stripped from that PDF, and you can, quickly scan the medications, and then you have multiple modalities of information that synthesize along with the template instruction into your final report.
Okay, very cool. So it's no longer just listening and scribing and summarizing. Now this is multimodal, coming in from the camera, coming in from other consult notes on your computer. You're like attaching patient histories, getting the full picture in there.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
and the other thing we
very cool.
noticed that as specialists or people who do sort of consultation-based practices, we move around the healthcare system a lot. So, we're not in the same office using the same EMR every day. On Tuesdays, I'm in my office, I use a Curo. On Wednesdays, I'm in the hospital, I use Meditech. Thursdays, sometimes I run a WSIB clinic, which is like our workers' comp clinic. They use Microsoft Word. And on Fridays, sometimes I do a virtual clinic that uses TELUS CHR. So different EMRs, different ecosystems, different patients embedded in these. So we try to build a solution that's agnostic to whatever you're using that day, that acts as a digital interface between the provider, the healthcare provider, the physician, whoever's using it, and the patient in front of them, along with the information that they're gathering.
Are you a healthcare professional ready to take the next step in your career? Do you dream of a role where you truly make a difference in a community that's perfect for you and your family? Well then, let me introduce you to Cherry Health. Our platform puts thousands of healthcare opportunities right at your fingertips. Explore jobs by location, specialty, compensation, and more. All on an intuitive map-based platform, available on Android, iOS, or your computer's internet browser. Create your professional profile for free and get started messaging directly with employers. Beyond the app, Cherry Health also offers personalized, white-glove recruiting services who can guide you every step of the way. Your dream healthcare career is just a click or a phone call away. Visit www.cherry.health to start the next phase of your journey.
How does the AI do at differentiating? Like if audio's coming from different sources, but it doesn't have a direct feed, like let's say it's not on your computer and there's a microphone input from you and then the audio output coming from the other side, or if there's two people in a room and it's got to distinguish voices from each other, how does it actually recognize these things?
It does surprisingly well. Now, of course, there can be, if you've got a patient and their spouse in the room and their discussion then wanders from their right shoulder to their left knee to their right big toe, I get confused, the scribe gets confused, the patient and their spouse are confused. So generally at the end of these encounters, if I'm using the scribe, not every patient is a scribed encounter, but I clarify with the patient, I say, to be clear, we're talking about your right shoulder today, and here's the plan. And so that clarifies it for everyone who's listening, including the AI, and that really helps. But having this multimodal data workflow also helps kind of give the model the information it needs to help make your plan in what you actually want, because it now has an MRI report of the right shoulder. It will know, okay, we're talking about the right shoulder today, not the left toe that the patient brought up a few times. It will still add that if my template instructs, but it helps hone it into clinically relevant documentation. And really at the end of the day, it's documentation that later, 6 months later, when I see the patient outside the operating room, I quickly look at my note and I go, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's how I know if I have good documentation, because my own notes make sense to me later. It reflects my thinking at the time. It's not needlessly verbose. There's this sort of concern out there right now that all these AI scribes are generating AI slop. So huge verbose documentation that's not to the point. It's not helpful. But our sort of litmus test is, if I can figure out what I was thinking 6 to 12 months later, that's our wait list. That is a good note for me. And that's really what matters. Like, can I remember my thought process? And can the referring provider understand, the thought process and the consultation and so on?
Yeah, because you don't want to have too much just junk in there to waste time.
No.
It's not like a high school, writing project with a
Yeah.
word count, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think there is that fear that that is happening in the Scribe space, and part of that may be driven by the US remuneration models. You've got these insurance providers that are reviewing AI-generated letters. They're probably writing AI-generated responses. And so we're aware of that. We're cognizant of that, and we built a software that allows you to have your output however you like, and to really customize it to your needs.
And then how did you get started going with everything? Like you have your co-founder, I'm assuming is the more technical
Yeah.
person of the group here. Like what did those early conversations look like as getting going on something complicated like
Yeah,
this?
it's tough, and people ask me that a lot. So we kind of, luckily, I have some business experience, and I have another healthcare clinic that does like a virtual cloud kind of healthcare model. But we just kind of put our noses down. We started testing it out in our clinics, and that's an advantage when you have physician founders. You have access to that environment that other teams that are maybe just consisting of engineers, they can't get into a hospital, they can't get into a clinic, they can't get in front of patients. So we just started testing in our clinic, obviously asking patients for their consent. And while we did all the business stuff simultaneously, setting up a corporation, talking to a good legal team, generating your terms of service, setting up, the secure infrastructure that we need to actually build a company. And that, in a way, is a lot more work and a lot more onerous than creating a cool little software, especially now with vibe coding. Anyone can make a decent appearing software that has a nice UI. It may not work that well, but actually doing the legwork and building a company is a challenge.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces. How did those initial testings go? Were you like pleasantly surprised? Ooh, this is
Yeah,
going pretty
it's like right
swimmingly, or
away.
was it?
Yeah, right away it was very impressive. Like I actually couldn't believe it. I actually had a patient, I remember this, they were on driving their truck somewhere in Northern Ontario on speakerphone with a thick accent, Northern Ontario accent, in the bush somewhere with very, very poor sort of audio quality. While I had asked them, I'm using the Scribe, my computer was picking up the audio. And at the end of the encounter, I had like a really nice note. I'm like, wow, that was incredible. And it's progressed since then. So it was really like, it felt like magic. And even still, when we see people who haven't used this before use it for the first time, there is that feeling like, wow, I can't believe I've been typing my notes this whole time, or dictating line by line now that we have this technology.
The dictation used to stress me out to no end when I'd have to be talking into the microphone and doing a full discharge summary like that. God, that was.
Yeah, I remember as a med student, Toronto Western Hospital, like clutching the phone, like my palm was like white, like trying to dictate, an internal medicine consultation note, and you push 33333, you go back 3 seconds, you insert back into the middle of the text. That technology now is, antiquated, and it had its purpose, but even with ours, I still think there's value in dictating certain letters and for certain encounters. So we have a dictation function. It's just a little sleeker. The formatting happens automatically. It kind of follows your template. So you're not sitting there saying period, comma, new paragraph, that kind of thing.
Is the dictation function, would that be more suitable for then, let's say, your post OR operative note as opposed to the conversational flow of the clinical encounter?
Yeah, for sure. So most of my operative notes I dictate, but there are some, consultations that I still dictate because I might go see someone in the hospital, and a little old lady with a hip fracture doesn't know where she is. She's kind of confused. But there's not much to scribe there. So I talk to the patient, call the family, look at the labs, and then I dictate that information into my phone or into QuickChart to generate that letter. So, for a lot of our patients, we're not always ambiently scribing, but for those in-clinic face-to-face consultations, most of that is an ambient scribe type of capture.
And then how have things evolved over the years? So those initial, the version 1.0, and then
Yeah.
even just like the LLMs and the underlying AI powering these things have come a long way. Like how have you guys captured those upgrades? How have you actually changed
Yeah.
things?
So we know early on we noticed there were a lot of hallucinations in AI. AI models would hallucinate, and we had to build a very strong infrastructure to kind of contain hallucinations. And now, for the most part, they seem to be gone. Like the models have gotten so good. They know what you're thinking based on your question, and that part really has improved. The other part really is the underlying technology is getting faster, and it's becoming able to do clinical reasoning. Now, of course, there's a whole Health Canada pathway to becoming a medical device if you're actually giving medical advice, but for give me the guidelines on this, give me some ideas around that, like they've become very good at clinical reasoning. And Pavel, my co-founder, actually has a study out in CJC where he tested cardiologists and senior residents and staff physicians against the leading models. And, it's like the models are up here and, staff docs are down here. And we're seeing that over and over again. Like our knowledge in terms of pure book knowledge has a limit. Our clinical intuition, I think, is where our strength really comes into play. And I don't think AI models are there yet. They are good at empathy, and there's a couple papers out, including one in Nature recently, but their pure knowledge of the guidelines, understanding the literature, you've probably tried open evidence. It's hard to beat an AI model at that. But the clinical intuition, I'm sure in your case too, you just look at a patient sometimes, you go, okay, I know where this is going, right? So that I think is really not going to maybe ever come into play. But we noticed that as the models got better and more capable, we started adding functionality that kind of reflected the needs in our practice. So one example is, if you have your consultation letter, we added this multi-document workflow. So you have your consultation note, then based on that, you can write a referral letter. Based on that, you can write a work note. So you can generate multiple documents concurrently that you then have attached to that patient's file, which is a really nice way to do things because typically I'm scrambling around for a prescription to scribble a work note. Like that's what I usually do. It's not great. You can barely read it. Like it's not very clear. The patient leaves and calls me back and says, what did he say here? Like the employer wants something else. So we try to build a multi-document workflow that allows people to do that and enter some familiarity. So we recently brought in a Google-like or ChatGPT-like search bar. So you can pull up your existing templates, you can search anything, you can ask anything, or you can prompt anything to give people that kind of familiarity because now everyone understands ChatGPT's bar. Most people all previously understood Google, so try and bring in some of that familiar UI.
And then how do you capture the clinical reasoning side of things? Like how do you actually interface with, okay, we've got this wealth of knowledge on there. We're recording and we're getting everything in there as far as the conversation goes. And then the output is now starting to be more directed and getting ahead of what our step 2 and 3 would be. But how does it actually start to like influence, if that's the right word? Is it influencing what you're doing in the room? Like, is it prompting?
Yeah, that's a good question. And no, we don't do that. And we actually have a study coming out in orthopedics where we're looking to see, in a blinded study, is the clinical reasoning of these models equivocal or non-inferior to orthopedic surgeons. So stay tuned. No one's really studied this fully. And like I said previously, they're good at following guidelines and sort of evidence-based recommendations, but that clinical intuition is lacking. And so, I don't really use these models to make decisions, but sometimes it is helpful to say, what do the guidelines say about this? I might pull up QuickChart's AI assistant, kind of intelligent assistant function, and ask a question there. I might try open evidence. So I'm pretty impressed with how quickly you can get to the evidence, but I don't think in actually making those decisions it's super helpful. But it's like asking a third colleague. Like sometimes I'll ask one colleague, I'll ask another colleague.
Yeah, I guess if you're asking questions to find more questions, it's hard to go wrong there. But if you're like directly getting your, patient care decisions influenced, so now we're starting to, that's a little more of a high risk scenario.
Yeah, I know. I think that's coming, to be honest. If you look at what's happening overseas and in different parts of the world, in Utah now, there's a clinic that's doing prescription renewals just purely based on AI. So I think a lot of that is coming. I think Canada's a little bit behind by that. Some hospitals here don't even have an AI guidance committee set up so that they can build a policy to allow scribes or not, where I think 60% of US health systems are now onboarding with scribes, and in Asia they have AI running hospitals apparently. So, we're definitely behind the curve there, but cautious sort of optimism, I guess.
Attracting top healthcare talent is crucial for providing exceptional patient care, but connecting with the right professionals can be time-consuming and complex. Cherry Health bridges the gap. Our network allows you to showcase your organization, post jobs with precision and ease, and directly engage with healthcare providers actively searching for roles like yours. Whether you're an ambitious do-it-yourselfer or a seasoned recruiter, Our intuitive web platform makes it easy to showcase your open roles and organize your applicants. Need a more personalized approach? Cherry Health Staffing Solutions offers dedicated recruiters to find and vet the perfect candidates for your specific needs. Build your dream team with Cherry Health. Visit www.cherry.health and start growing your team today.
And then walk me through the workflows and how do you differentiate for somebody who's a consultation service or specialist versus more primary care focused use of the tool?
So we have a lot of primary care providers using our platform, but we noticed it was more of a business decision because a lot of the other scribes were marketing towards family doctors. There was a lot of sort of government funding going towards some of these tools. So we decided to pivot into the market that we do best, which was first orthopedics and cardiology, and now has expanded to, there's rheumatologists, there's a lot of family doctors. A lot of our GPs they'll do addictions medicine, they'll do palliative care, they do geriatrics, the kind of longer consultation-based assessments rather than, multiple successive quick visits with short notes. That being said, I use it in my fracture clinic, which is those multiple successive visits with short notes, and it's been fine. But that's our strength, is trying to build that consultation-like platform. But again, physios are using it for their consults, NPs are using it for their consults, GPs are using it for their consults. So really anyone can use it. But that was more of a business and marketing strategy.
Gotcha. Okay. And then what is the easiest way that you found to actually interface the program with the clinical encounter? Like, are you using a microphone? Do you just pop your phone in your pocket? Are you bringing your laptop around?
I bring my laptop in the room. I ask consent and I record on my laptop. And actually we have a team system. So my secretary kind of looks at the notes on her side and she drops them in the EMR. So I don't even need to log into my EMR. I'm in QuickChart. My patients are there for the day. I view the EMR as the filing cabinet in the back office now, and my interface is QuickChart because we have other sort of tools that allow patients to interact with it as well. Like we have a patient interviewer that basically is like an AI agent that does an intake assessment of the patient before you walk in the room. So your history is basically done for you. And that's the kind of layer that we're building, the digital interface between the physician and the patient.
And then what's the patient reception to AI like this been like?
Overall, it's been very good. Most patients, and there's studies on this, AI scribes are well received in general by patients. I've had maybe, of the hundreds, one or two say, no, I'm not comfortable with this tool. Okay, fine. But vast majority are fine with it. And research has shown that physicians make more eye contact. There's a perception we're spending more time in the room. We're able to do a more focused examination. Patients feeling heard because you're not sitting there looking at a screen typing the whole time. So the reception has been very positive.
I think they kind of go by your level of excitement for it too, right? You're like, there's this pretty cool thing that's going to let me pay more attention to you and do a better job. And then they're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see where things go. There's still a gap where typically patients come and see us as providers. We want to give our patients autonomy. We want to give them the tools they need to succeed, but they usually leave the healthcare provider's office empty-handed. We write a really nice letter, it gets sent to the GP. So we're working on some features and tools that are going to empower patients a little bit, that actually gives them an understanding of their healthcare and allows them to leave the visit with something in their hands, like an AI-generated handout, for example, of that visit, rather than just trying to remember. They leave. Studies have shown 80% of patients forget what was said. In my own experience, I go see my GP, I leave, I don't remember what we talked about. You try and log into your Life Labs portal to look at your lab work, and it's mission impossible. So yeah, we're trying to build something that really gives patients autonomy and it helps them understand their healthcare at the point of that visit with their provider.
Well, that's huge, right? If it's promoting health literacy, helping make them a more informed, better educated patient. And again, just the part about not immediately forgetting and losing a lot of what was discussed, that's huge.
And the other part is reducing callbacks to your office, right? They leave, they call back and they say, when can I drive again? Or, I have this conversation often, patients come in for surgery, and then they're always surprised at their 2-week visit that they need a sling for 6 weeks, even though I told them that, when we sign up for surgery, but, it's overwhelming. There's a lot going on. They may not hear all that information or take it in. So I think we build all these cool tools on the physician side. We need to do a little bit more on the patient side.
And then kind of to summarize everything so far, like who would be, I guess if you had to distill it down to two or maybe three kind of the ideal personas who are going to get the most out of QuickCharts, who are those personas? And then what is the difference between the other AI scribes and what else is already out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll start with that part. I think we have the most features. We have a telehealth platform actually that just launched. So similar to this podcast application, you can meet patients face to face in QuickChart. They're on their device at home. You can do a video call. It transcribes the visit and you can immediately generate your note. We also added phone call functionality. So you can call patients at home. You can import your own office number. So you can be on your laptop on a train, or maybe not train, but somewhere at your own house, and their caller display shows your office calling them. You talk to the patient on the phone, it transcribes the visit, it can then add it to the chart, along with this idea of a multimodal workflow. So I think that's what sets us apart in our position, right? We're both physicians, the colleagues around us are all using the software. We're really getting a lot of feedback from people, which has been great to build it. And the two types of users, there's kind of two classes of users. The first is they're not that, out their notes. They just want to log in, hit record, hit stop, and it'll generate a quick note for them. And we have that functionality, and we're trying to make it basically as zero touch and as easy as possible. And then there's the other side, which is people that, they want the 12-page consultation letter with specific formatting, with bullet points, with bolding, and they really care about their notes, and they're very, very detail oriented. And we also have, those camp of people, and they're quite happy with it. It's a challenge to keep both groups happy, but I think we've managed to do so far based on our user base and our growth. There are a lot of scribes out there. We're a Canadian company, and we're on the OMAs, which is like the Ontario government basically looked at all the solution and published a list of verified vendors from a safety and security standpoint. So we're one of the companies on that list. And yeah, check us out. QuickChart.
And then how are you guys measuring value? How much time or how many dollars is this going to save me in billing and waste every month, every week?
So our pricing is competitive, $75 a month for a full plan, which is pretty much the lowest in Canada right now. And we placed that pricing because for me, an orthopedic consultation, and try not to laugh, Alberta people, is $84 in Ontario. That's what I get paid for a consultation. And QuickChart after tax is $84. So our statement is, if you can see one extra consultation per month, this pays for itself. And we can see there, in all of our physicians who use it often, they're saving about an hour per day. So $84 a month gives, how much is your time worth, right? So the value add is absolutely incredible. You can see more patients if you want to, or you can finish work at 3 p.m. instead of 4 p.m. And that's much nicer.
Hang out with your kids, spend time with your family.
Amen.
Right on. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. If anyone wants to get a hold of you or check out QuickChart, what's the best place to go?
They can Google QuickChart. Our website is quickchart.md, and we're on LinkedIn as well.
Amazing.
And on Cherry Health.
Moktar. Yeah, and on Cherry Health. Check them out. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.